I arrived at the Canadian high school 15 minutes before my shift officially began. The November air was sharp, biting at my skin as I crossed the empty parking lot. The building loomed ahead, its windows dark except for a few faint glows from the hallways. It looked ordinary enough from the outside, but I already knew from the way the head custodian had spoken earlier that this place was anything but ordinary at night. The silence was heavy, unnatural. Schools are supposed to echo with laughter, footsteps, the chatter of students. But here, at this hour, the silence pressed in like a weight. The lockers lined the corridor like soldiers, their metal doors reflecting faint shadows that didn't belong to me. I paused, listening. Somewhere, deep inside the building, I thought I heard a whisper. My name, just my name, carried faintly on the air. I froze. My supervisor's warning echoed in my head. Don't answer the voices after midnight. At the time, it had sounded absurd, almost like a joke. But standing here, with the silence pressing in and the faint echo of something calling me, I wasn't so sure. I forced myself to keep walking. My footsteps echoed too loudly against the linoleum floor, bouncing back at me as if the building itself was mocking my presence. I passed the trophy case, its glass reflecting my face in distorted fragments. For a moment, I thought I saw another face beside mine, pale, hollow-eyed, but when I turned, there was nothing. The first night was supposed to be simple. Watch the halls, keep the doors locked, report anything unusual. But already, the air felt wrong, charged with something unseen. I reached the security office, a small room tucked behind the main hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering slightly. On the desk sat a binder, the rule book. I hadn't opened it yet. That was for later, when the head custodian arrived to explain. For now, I sat down, trying to steady my breathing. The whispers came again, louder this time, from the stairwell. I stood, heart pounding. The stairwell was dark, shadows pooling at the bottom like liquid. I strained to listen. The voice was clearer now, and it wasn't just my name. It was a sentence. Come down here. I gripped the edge of the desk, reminding myself of the rule. Don't answer, don't engage, ignore it. But ignoring wasn't easy. The voice sounded familiar, too familiar, like my mother's. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay put. The rule book hadn't even been explained yet, but I already knew breaking it would mean trouble. The minutes crawled by. I checked my watch. 11:45 p.m. 15 minutes until midnight. 15 minutes until the voices were supposed to begin in earnest. But they were already here. I tried to distract myself, walking the halls with my flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating posters on the walls, announcements for clubs and sports teams. Normal things, ordinary things. But in the silence, they felt eerie, like relics from another world. I passed classroom 3B. The door was locked, a heavy chain looped through the handles. I remembered the custodian's words, "Never open classroom 3B." I didn't know why. I didn't want to know why. But as I passed, I thought I heard scratching from inside. I quickened my pace. The gymnasium was next. The lights flickered on as I entered, though I hadn't touched the switch. Shadows moved across the floor, long and distorted, as if a game was being played by invisible players. I backed out quickly, heart racing. Back in the hallway, the whispers followed me. Always just behind, always just out of sight. I returned to the security office, shutting the door firmly. The binder sat on the desk, waiting. I didn't open it, not yet. I wasn't ready. Midnight came. The voices grew louder. They called my name, over and over, from every direction. The stairwell, the gym, classroom 3B. I pressed my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. The voices weren't just sounds, they were inside my head. I tried to focus on the rules I remembered. Don't answer. Don't open doors. Don't leave before dawn. Simple rules, but simple didn't mean easy. The air grew colder. My breath fogged in front of me. The lights flickered, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the room. I fumbled for my flashlight, clicking it on. The beam illuminated the binder. For a moment, I thought I saw words written across the cover in red ink. They are listening. I blinked, and the words were gone. The voices pressed closer. I could feel them, like hands brushing against my skin. I backed against the wall, gripping the flashlight tightly. Then, silence. Complete silence. I lowered the flashlight, heart pounding. The building was still, too still. I knew this was only the beginning. The knock on the office door came just as the clock struck midnight. I jumped, my nerves already frayed from the whispers that had chased me through the halls. When I opened the door, the head custodian stood there, his face pale and lined with exhaustion. He carried a thick binder under one arm, the same one I had seen earlier on the desk. "Close the door," he said, his voice low but urgent. I obeyed, shutting out the hallway and its unseen voices. He placed the binder on the desk with deliberate care, as though it were something fragile or dangerous. "This," he said, tapping the cover, "is the rule book. You'll need it if you want to survive here." I stared at him, unsure whether to laugh or recoil. Survive? It was a school, not a battlefield. But the look in his eyes silenced any protest. He wasn't joking. He opened the binder. Inside, the pages were yellowed, filled with handwritten notes, typed instructions, and strange symbols scrawled in the margins. The first page was simple enough. Rule 1. Do not answer the voices after midnight. I swallowed hard. I had already heard them. Already resisted the urge to respond. "Why?" I asked. The custodian shook his head. "Because they're not voices, not really. They sound familiar, they'll call your name, they'll beg for help, but they're bait. If you answer, they'll know you're listening, and once they know, they'll come closer." He turned the page. Rule 2. Never open classroom 3B. I thought of the chain door, the scratching I had heard from inside. "What's in there?" He hesitated, then said, "Not what, who, and you don't want to meet them." The next rule was stranger still. Rule 3, at 2 a.m., the gymnasium lights will turn on. Do not enter, do not look inside. I remembered the shadows moving across the gym floor. What happens if you do? He closed the binder for a moment, his hand trembling. "You'll see the game, and once you see it, you'll want to play. But the players aren't human, and they don't let you leave." I felt a chill crawl down my spine. He reopened the binder, flipping through more pages. Rule 4. If you hear footsteps behind you, do not turn around. I frowned. "But what if someone's there?" "They're not," he said firmly. "Not anyone alive anyway. If you turn, you'll see them. And once you see them, they'll follow you forever." The rules continued, each more bizarre than the last. Rule 5. The library whispers after 3 a.m. Do not listen. Rule 6. If the stairwell door is open, close it immediately. Rule 7. Never leave before dawn. I tried to process it all, my mind reeling. This wasn't a job. It was a test, a trap. The custodian leaned closer. "You think this is ridiculous? I did too once. But I broke a rule. Just one. And I lost a friend that night. He answered a voice. It sounded like his brother. He never came back." I shivered, remembering the whispers that had mimicked my mother's voice. The custodian's eyes were haunted. This school isn't just a building. It's a threshold. Something lives here. Something that feeds on broken rules. The rules aren't protection. They're boundaries. Break them and you invite it in. He pushed the binder toward me. "Memorize them. Live by them, or you won't last the night. I flipped through the pages, each rule etched into my mind. The voices outside the office grew louder, pressing against the walls. I clenched my fists, determined not to answer. The custodian stood, his face grim. I'll be back at dawn. Until then, it's your shift. Guard the halls, guard yourself, and whatever you do, follow the rules. He left, the door clicking shut behind him. I sat alone, the binder open before me, the voices whispering from every corner of the school. The rules were clear, simple, but simple didn't mean easy. I read them again, over and over, until the words blurred. My heart pounded, my breath shallow. Then, from the hallway, a knock. Not on the office door, on classroom 3B. The chain rattled, the scratching grew louder. I gripped the binder, whispering the rule to myself. Never open classroom 3B. The knocking continued, relentless, as if testing my resolve. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to stay still. But the voices knew I was listening, and they weren't going to stop. The hallway stretched before me like an endless tunnel, its polished floors reflecting the dim glow of the emergency lights. I had walked these corridors countless times during the day, when students rushed between classes, laughter and chatter filling the air. But now, at night, the silence was suffocating. Every step I took echoed too loudly, bouncing back at me as though the building itself was alive and listening. I clutched the binder of rules tighter against my chest. The custodian's words replayed in my mind. Do not answer the voices after midnight. Midnight had passed. The voices had already begun. At first, it was faint, like the wind slipping through cracks in the windows. But as I moved deeper into the hallway, the whispers grew clearer. They weren't random sounds. They were words. My name. Over and over, spoken in tones that shifted from familiar to strange. Come closer. Don't be afraid. We need you. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The voices seemed to come from everywhere at once, behind me, ahead of me, even above me. I turned my flashlight toward the lockers, half expecting to see someone crouched inside. But the beam revealed only cold metal and shadows. The rules were simple. Ignore them. Keep walking. Do not answer. But ignoring wasn't easy. One of the voices sounded exactly like my father's. He had passed away years ago, yet here he was, calling my name in the same gentle tone he used when I was a child. My chest tightened, grief mixing with fear. Son, the voice whispered, help me. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing myself to keep moving. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. The hallway seemed to stretch longer the further I walked. Doors lined the walls, each classroom dark and silent. But as I passed, I thought I saw movement inside. Shadows shifting, figures pressed against the glass. I quickened my pace, refusing to look too closely. Then came the footsteps. Soft at first, like someone walking barefoot behind me. I froze, remembering another rule. If you hear footsteps behind you, do not turn around. The sound grew louder, closer. My instinct screamed at me to look, to confirm whether someone was there. But the custodian's warning echoed in my mind. If I turned, I would see them. And once I saw them, they would never leave me. I forced myself forward, each step heavier than the last. The footsteps followed, perfectly in sync with mine. Stop, a voice whispered. Turn around. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. Ignore it. Keep walking. The footsteps grew louder, faster, until they were almost running. My heart pounded, sweat dripping down my forehead. I wanted to scream, but I bit my tongue, refusing to give the voices what they wanted. Finally, I reached the end of the hallway. The footsteps stopped. The voices fell silent. I leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. My legs trembled, my body weak from the effort of resisting. But the silence didn't last. From the far end of the hallway, a new sound emerged, a knock, slow, deliberate, echoing through the empty corridors. I knew instantly where it came from. Classroom 3B. The chain rattled, the door shuddered. The knocking grew louder, more insistent. I backed away, clutching the binder tighter. Never open classroom 3B. The rule was clear, but the voices didn't care. "Please," they whispered, "we're trapped. Help us." The knocking continued, relentless. My flashlight flickered, the beam sputtering. For a moment, the hallway plunged into darkness. When the light returned, I thought I saw hands pressed against the glass of the classroom door. Pale, skeletal hands clawing to get out. I stumbled backward, my breath ragged. The voices grew louder, overlapping, dozens of them crying out at once. "Open the door! Let us out! We're waiting!" I shook my head violently, whispering the rule to myself like a prayer. Never open classroom 3B. Never open classroom 3B. The knocking stopped. Silence. I lowered the flashlight, my body trembling. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then, from the darkness, a single voice spoke. It was my mother's. "Please," she said softly. "It's me! I'm inside! Don't leave me here!" My knees buckled, tears stung my eyes. The voice was perfect, her tone, her cadence, even the way she said my name. I pressed my hands over my ears, shaking my head. "No! You're not real! You're not her!" But the voice persisted, gentle and pleading. "I need you! Just open the door! Just once!" I staggered backward, my resolve crumbling. The rule was clear, but the temptation was overwhelming. The hallway seemed to close in around me, the walls pressing tighter, the air growing colder. My flashlight flickered again, and for a split second, I thought I saw her face in the glass of the classroom door. Pale, hollow-eyed, but undeniably hers. I screamed, stumbling away. The voices erupted, dozens of them shouting, crying, begging. The footsteps returned, pounding behind me. The hallway shook, lockers rattling, doors slamming open and shut. I ran, my breath ragged, my heart pounding. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away. The voices followed, relentless. "Come back. Don't leave us. Open the door." I reached the stairwell, the door slightly ajar. Another rule: if the stairwell door is open, close it immediately. I slammed it shut, my hands trembling. The voices screamed in protest, the sound reverberating through the building. Then, silence. I collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath. My body ached, my mind spinning. The rules were clear, simple, but simple didn't mean easy. I clutched the binder tighter, whispering the rules to myself like a mantra. Don't answer the voices. Don't open classroom 3B. Don't turn around. Don't leave before dawn. The voices would keep testing me. They would keep pushing, tempting, luring. The chain rattled again. I froze in the middle of the hallway, my flashlight beam trembling as it landed on the heavy lock that sealed classroom 3B. The door shuddered as if something inside was pressing against it, desperate to get out. I whispered the rule under my breath. Never open classroom 3B. The voices had been relentless all night, but now they seemed concentrated, pouring from behind that door. They weren't just whispers anymore. They were cries, pleas, sobs. Some sounded like children, others like adults, all overlapping in a chorus of desperation. "Please," one voice begged, "we're trapped." "Help us," another cried, "just open the door." My hands shook. The custodian's warning echoed in my mind, but the temptation was overwhelming. What if someone really was inside? What if this wasn't just some supernatural trick?
I stepped closer, the chain rattling louder as though sensing my hesitation. My flashlight flickered, and for a moment I thought I saw faces pressed against the glass window of the door, pale, hollow-eyed, their mouths moving in silent screams. I stumbled back, heart pounding. The voices shifted, becoming more personal. They called my name, each one mimicking someone I knew. My mother, my father, friends long gone. Even my own voice, distorted and hollow, echoed from behind the door. "Open it," my voice whispered. "You know you want to." I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. The rule was clear. But the longer I stood there, the harder it became to resist. The scratching grew louder, claws dragging across the wood. The door shook violently, the chain straining against the force. My flashlight beam caught something moving inside, shadows twisting, writhing, merging into shapes that defied logic. I backed away, whispering the rule again like a prayer, "Never open classroom 3B." But the voices didn't stop. They grew louder, more insistent, filling the hallway with a cacophony of sound. "Please, don't leave us. We're waiting." The air grew colder, my breath fogging in front of me. The walls seemed to close in, the hallway narrowing, pressing me toward the door. I turned, desperate to escape, but the footsteps returned, soft, deliberate, following me. I remembered the rule, do not turn around. I forced myself forward, each step heavier than the last. The footsteps grew louder, faster, until they were almost running. My heart pounded, sweat dripping down my forehead. I wanted to scream, but I bit my tongue, refusing to give the voices what they wanted. Finally, I reached the stairwell. The door was ajar. Another rule, if the stairwell door is open, close it immediately. I slammed it shut, my hands trembling. The voices screamed in protest, the sound reverberating through the building. But classroom 3B wasn't finished. The knocking resumed, louder than before, shaking the door on its hinges. The chain rattled violently, as though it might snap at any moment. I pressed my back against the wall, clutching the binder of rules. My mind raced, torn between fear and curiosity. What was inside? Why was it locked away? The custodian's words echoed in my mind. Not what, who, and you don't want to meet them. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay put. The voices shifted again, softer now, almost gentle. They spoke in tones meant to soothe, to comfort. "It's safe," they whispered. "We won't hurt you. Just open the door. You'll understand." I shook my head violently, whispering the rule again. Never open classroom 3B. But the temptation gnawed at me. The door shook violently, the chain straining. My flashlight flickered, and for a moment, I thought I saw the lock begin to crack. I stumbled backward, my breath ragged. The voices grew louder, overlapping, dozens of them crying out at once. "Open it! Let us out! We're waiting!" I pressed my hands over my ears, shaking my head. "No! You're not real! You're not here!" But the voices persisted, relentless. The hallway shook, lockers rattling, doors slamming open and shut. Shadows danced across the walls, twisting into grotesque shapes. I ran, my breath ragged, my heart pounding. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away. The voices followed, relentless. "Come back! Don't leave us! Open the door!" I reached the security office, slamming the door shut behind me. The binder sat on the desk, open to the page that read, "Never open classroom 3B." I collapsed into the chair, gasping for breath. My body ached, my mind spinning. The knocking continued, echoing through the halls, shaking the building. I clutched the binder tighter, whispering the rules to myself like a mantra. Don't answer the voices. Don't open classroom 3B. Don't turn around. Don't leave before dawn. The voices would keep testing me. They would keep pushing, tempting, luring. and if I broke even one rule, I knew I wouldn't survive the night. The knocking grew louder, more violent, until it felt like the entire building was shaking. Then, silence. Complete silence. I lowered the flashlight, heart pounding. The building was still, too still. The clock on the wall ticked past 2 a.m. I knew what was coming.
The custodian's warning echoed in my mind. At 2 a.m., the gymnasium lights will turn on. Do not enter. Do not look inside. I was patrolling the hallway when the sudden hum of electricity filled the air. The gym doors at the far end of the corridor glowed faintly as the lights inside flickered to life. My stomach tightened. I hadn't touched the switch. No one had. The voices began almost immediately. They weren't whispers this time.
They were cheers, loud, echoing, like a crowd at a basketball game. The sound rolled down the hallway, filling the silence with unnatural energy. I froze, my flashlight beam trembling in my hand. The gym was alive. Against every instinct, I stepped closer. The cheering grew louder, accompanied by the squeak of sneakers on polished wood, the thud of a ball bouncing. My heart pounded. It sounded so real, so normal, but I knew better. The custodian's words rang in my ears. Do not enter. Do not look inside. I stopped just short of the doors. The cheering was deafening now, a full crowd roaring with excitement. My hand hovered over the handle, trembling. Then a voice cut through the noise. It was my own. "Come on," it shouted from inside. "We need you." My knees buckled. The sound was unmistakable. My voice, distorted but clear, calling me to join the game. I stumbled back, whispering the rule like a mantra. Do not enter. Do not look inside. But the temptation gnawed at me. The doors rattled, as though someone inside was slamming against them. The cheering grew louder, the sound of the game intensifying. I could almost see it, the players running, the ball flying, the crowd erupting. I pressed my hands over my ears, shaking my head. No, you're not real. You're not here. But the voices persisted, relentless. Join us. Play the game. You'll understand. The gym door shook violently, the sound reverberating through the hallway. My flashlight flickered, the beam sputtering. For a moment, I thought I saw shadows moving beneath the doors, long, distorted shapes twisting unnaturally. I backed away, heart pounding. The cheering shifted, becoming darker, more sinister. It wasn't excitement anymore. It was hunger. The voices overlapped, dozens of them crying out at once. Play, play, play. I stumbled backward, my breath ragged. The hallway seemed to close in around me, the walls pressing tighter, forcing me toward the gym. I turned, desperate to escape, but the footsteps returned, soft, deliberate, following me. I remembered the rule, do not turn around. I forced myself forward, each step heavier than the last. The footsteps grew louder, faster, until they were almost running. My heart pounded, sweat dripping down my forehead. I wanted to scream, but I bit my tongue, refusing to give the voices what they wanted. Finally, I reached the stairwell. The door was ajar. Another rule, if the stairwell door is open, close it immediately. I slammed it shut, my hands trembling. The voices screamed in protest, the sound reverberating through the building. But the gym wasn't finished. The cheering resumed, louder than before, shaking the walls. The sound of the game intensified, the ball bouncing harder, the sneakers squeaking faster. I pressed my back against the wall, clutching the binder of rules. My mind raced, torn between fear and curiosity. What was inside? Why was it locked away? The custodian's words echoed in my mind. The players aren't human, and they don't let you leave. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay put. The voices shifted again, softer now, almost gentle. They spoke in tones meant to soothe, to comfort. "It's safe," they whispered. "We won't hurt you. Just open the door. You'll understand." I shook my head violently, whispering the rule again. "Do not enter. Do not look inside." But the temptation gnawed at me. The door shook violently, the sound reverberating through the hallway. My flashlight flickered, and for a moment I thought I saw the lock begin to crack. I stumbled backward, my breath ragged. The voices grew louder, overlapping, dozens of them crying out at once. "Play, play, play." I pressed my hands over my ears, shaking my head. "No, you're not real. You're not here." But the voices persisted, relentless. The hallway shook, lockers rattling, doors slamming open and shut. Shadows danced across the walls, twisting into grotesque shapes. I ran, my breath ragged, my heart pounding. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away. The voices followed, relentless. "Come back. Don't leave us. Play the game." I reached the security office, slamming the door shut behind me. The binder sat on the desk, open to the page that read, "Do not enter the gymnasium." I collapsed into the chair, gasping for breath. My body ached, my mind spinning. The cheering continued, echoing through the halls, shaking the building. I clutched the binder tighter, whispering the rules to myself like a mantra. Don't answer the voices. Don't open classroom 3B. Don't turn around. Don't enter the gymnasium. Don't leave before dawn. The voices would keep testing me. They would keep pushing, tempting, luring. And if I broke even one rule, I knew I wouldn't survive the night.
The cheering grew louder, more violent, until it felt like the entire building was shaking. Then, silence. Complete silence. I lowered the flashlight, heart pounding. The building was still, too still. I knew this was only the beginning. The library doors loomed at the end of the corridor, tall and imposing, their glass panes reflecting the faint glow of the emergency lights. I hesitated before pushing them open.
The custodian's warning echoed in my mind. The library whispers after 3 a.m. Do not listen. It was 3:05 a.m. The moment I stepped inside, the air shifted. The silence was heavier here, thicker, as though the books themselves were holding their breath. Rows upon rows of shelves stretched into the darkness, their spines gleaming faintly under the flickering lights. At first, it seemed normal, dusty, quiet, abandoned. But then I heard it, a whisper, soft, almost imperceptible, like pages turning. I froze, my flashlight beam sweeping across the shelves. The whisper grew louder, more distinct. It wasn't just sound, it was words. Stay, read, never leave. I swallowed hard, gripping the binder tighter. The rule was clear, do not listen. But the whispers were everywhere, seeping from the shelves, the books, the very walls. I forced myself forward, each step echoing too loudly against the carpeted floor. The whispers followed, growing louder, overlapping. Do you know our stories? Do you want to hear? We were here once. We never left. I shivered, my flashlight beam catching movement between the shelves. Shadows shifted, figures pressed against the books, their faces pale and hollow-eyed. I stumbled back, heart pounding. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. They weren't just voices, they were memories. I passed a shelf of yearbooks, their covers worn and faded. As I shone the flashlight across them, the whispers intensified. Class of '92, Class of '05, Class of '18. I reached out, my hand trembling, and pulled one of the yearbooks free. The moment I opened it, the whispers surged. Faces stared back at me from the pages, students smiling, laughing, frozen in time. But as I looked closer, their eyes seemed to shift, following me. their smiles twisted into grimaces, their mouths opening in silent screams. I slammed the book shut, my breath ragged. The whispers grew darker. They never left. They're still here. You will join them. I backed away, clutching the binder tighter. The custodian's words echoed in my mind. The library whispers stories of students who never left. I understood now. These weren't just books, they were prisons. Each one held a soul, trapped forever within its pages. The whispers pressed closer, filling my ears, my mind. I pressed my hands over my ears, shaking my head. No, you're not real. You're not here. But the voices persisted, relentless. Read us. Remember us. Stay with us. I stumbled backward, my flashlight flickering. For a moment, the shelves seemed to stretch endlessly, the rows multiplying, twisting into a labyrinth. I ran, desperate to escape, but the whispers followed, growing louder, more insistent. Don't leave. Stay. Forever. I reached the library doors, slamming them shut behind me. The whispers cut off instantly, leaving only silence. I collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath. My body ached, my mind spinning. The rule was clear, simple. But simple didn't mean easy. I clutched the binder tighter, whispering the rules to myself like a mantra. Don't answer the voices. Don't open classroom 3B. Don't turn around. Don't enter the gymnasium. Don't listen to the library. Don't leave before dawn. The voices would keep testing me. They would keep pushing, tempting, luring. And if I broke even one rule, I knew I wouldn't survive the night. The silence pressed in, heavier than before. I lowered the flashlight, heart pounding. The building was still, too still. I knew this was only the beginning. The clock ticked past 3:45 a.m. The building was silent, but silence here was never safe. It was the kind of silence that pressed against your chest, heavy and suffocating, waiting for you to slip. I sat in the security office, the binder of rules open before me. My eyes scanned the pages again and again, each line etched into my mind. Do not answer the voices. Do not open classroom 3B. Do not enter the gymnasium. Do not listen to the library. Do not turn around. Do not leave before dawn. Simple rules, deadly rules. The voices had tested me all night, pushing, tempting, luring. I had resisted, but resistance was wearing me down. My body ached, my mind spun, exhaustion gnawed at me. Then it happened. A voice. Not just any voice, my mother's. Please, she whispered, soft and trembling. I need you. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The sound was perfect. Her tone, her cadence, even the way she said my name. It was her. It had to be. I pressed my hands over my ears, shaking my head. No, you're not real. You're not here. But the voice persisted, gentle and pleading. I'm trapped. Help me, please. Tears stung my eyes. My mother had been gone for years, but hearing her now shattered me. The rule was clear. Do not answer the voices. But how could I ignore her? The hallway outside the office seemed to shift, the shadows twisting, stretching. The air grew colder, my breath fogging in front of me. Please, she whispered again, just say something, just once. My resolve crumbled. I whispered back, Mom? The moment the word left my lips, the world changed. The silence shattered, replaced by a deafening roar. The walls trembled, the floor shook, the lights flickered violently. The hallway stretched, twisting into endless corridors that spiraled in every direction. I stumbled to my feet, clutching the binder. The school was no longer a building. It was a labyrinth. The voices erupted, dozens of them shouting, crying, laughing. They filled the air,
pressing against me from every direction. You broke the rule. You answered. You're ours now. I ran, desperate to escape, but the corridors twisted endlessly, looping back on themselves. Doors led to nowhere, stairwells spiraled into darkness, classrooms multiplied into infinite rows. The binder shook in my hands, the pages fluttering wildly. Words appeared across them in red ink. You broke the rule. I stumbled through the labyrinth, my flashlight flickering. Shadows danced across the walls, grotesque shapes twisting into monstrous forms. The voices followed, relentless. Come closer. Don't be afraid. We need you. I turned a corner and found myself back at classroom 3B. The chain was gone. The door stood open. Inside, darkness pooled like liquid, thick and suffocating. Figures shifted within, pale and hollow-eyed, their mouths moving in silent screams. I backed away, heart pounding. The voices grew louder, overlapping, dozens of them crying out at once. You broke the rule! You let us in! You can't escape! The labyrinth twisted again, the walls closing in. I ran, my breath ragged, my heart pounding. The footsteps returned, louder than ever, pounding behind me. I remembered the rule, do not turn around. But the temptation was overwhelming. I stumbled, my resolve crumbling. I turned. For a moment, I saw them. Figures, dozens of them, pale and hollow-eyed, their faces twisted into grotesque smiles. They reached for me, their hands clawing, their eyes burning with hunger. I screamed, stumbling backward. The labyrinth shifted again, the corridors twisting into endless spirals. The voices laughed, mocking, triumphant. You broke the rule. You're ours now. You can't escape. I ran, desperate, but the labyrinth had no end. Every corridor led to another. Every door opened into darkness. The binder shook violently in my hands, the pages tearing, the words blurring. I collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath. My body ached, my mind spun. The voices pressed closer, filling the air, my ears, my mind. You broke the rule. You let us in. You can't escape. I closed my eyes, whispering the rules to myself like a prayer. Don't answer the voices. Don't open classroom 3B. Don't enter the gymnasium. Don't listen to the library. Don't turn around. Don't leave before dawn. But it was too late. I had broken the rule. The labyrinth was endless. The voices were relentless. And I knew deep down that I might never escape. The labyrinth twisted endlessly, corridors folding into one another like a nightmare without end. My breath came in ragged gasps. The binder of rules clutched tight against my chest. I had broken the rule. I had answered the voice. And now the school was no longer a school. It was a living maze, pulsing with hunger. The voices surrounded me, overlapping, mocking. You broke the rule. You let us in. You're ours now. I stumbled forward, desperate to escape, but every hallway led to another. Every door opened into darkness. My flashlight flickered, shadows twisting into grotesque shapes that danced along the walls. Then, silence. The voices stopped. The footsteps ceased. The labyrinth stilled. I froze, my heart pounding. Silence here was never safe. It was the kind of silence that meant something was watching. And then I saw it. At the end of the corridor, a figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, impossibly tall, its body shifting and writhing as though it were made of smoke and flesh intertwined. Its face was a void, a hollow absence, but its eyes burned, two pinpricks of light that pierced through the darkness.
The entity, the source of the voices. It moved closer, its steps soundless, its presence suffocating. The walls trembled as it passed, the air thickening, pressing against me. I backed away, clutching the binder tighter. My mind screamed at me to run, but my legs refused to move. The entity spoke, not with a single voice, but with all of them. Every whisper I had heard, every plea, every cry. It was all here, overlapping, echoing, filling the corridor with a cacophony of sound. You broke the rule. You answered. You belong to us. I shook my head violently, tears streaming down my face. No, I won't let you. The entity laughed, a sound that reverberated through the labyrinth, shaking the walls. You think the rules protect you? They are mine. I made them. They are chains, and you are bound. I stumbled backward, my flashlight flickering. The binder shook in my hands, the pages fluttering wildly. Words appeared across them in red ink. You cannot escape. The entity moved closer, its form shifting, twisting. For a moment, it looked like my mother. Then my father. Then me. Its face changed constantly, cycling through everyone I had ever known, everyone I had ever lost. It spoke again, softer now, almost gentle. Why resist? You are tired. You are alone. Let me in. Let me take you. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. No, I won't. The entity's eyes burned brighter, its form towering over me. The walls closed in, the corridor narrowing, pressing me toward it. I stumbled backward, my breath ragged. My flashlight flickered, sputtered, then died. Darkness swallowed me. The entity's voice filled the void. You cannot fight me. You cannot flee. You can only choose how you end. I pressed my back against the wall, clutching the binder tighter. My mind raced, torn between fear and defiance. The custodian's words echoed in my mind. The entity feeds on broken rules. I had broken one. But maybe I could still resist. Maybe I could still fight. I whispered the rules to myself like a prayer. Don't answer the voices. Don't open classroom 3B. Don't enter the gymnasium. Don't listen to the library. Don't turn around. Don't leave before dawn. The entity laughed again, mocking. You broke the first. You are mine. I shook my head violently. No, I can still follow the others. I can still survive. The entity's form shifted again, its face twisting into a grotesque smile. Survive? You think Dawn will save you? Dawn is mine. This place is mine. You are mine. I screamed, stumbling forward, desperate to escape. The labyrinth twisted again, corridors spiraling into darkness. The entity followed, its presence suffocating, its voice relentless. You cannot run. You cannot hide. You cannot fight. I ran, my breath ragged, my heart pounding. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to keep moving. The corridors twisted endlessly, doors opening into darkness, stairwells spiraling into voids. The entity followed, always behind me, always closer. Finally, I stumbled into the gymnasium. The lights flickered on, the cheering erupted, the game resumed. Shadows moved across the floor, players running, the ball bouncing. The entity laughed, its voice echoing through the gym. Look, see? Play. I backed away, clutching the binder tighter.
The rule was clear: do not enter the gymnasium. But I was already here. The players turned toward me, their faces pale and hollow-eyed, their eyes burning with hunger. They moved closer, their footsteps echoing across the floor. I screamed, stumbling backward. The entity's voice filled the gym. You broke another rule. You are mine. I ran, desperate to escape, but the players followed, their footsteps pounding, their voices crying out, "Play! Play! Play!" I stumbled through the doors, slamming them shut behind me. The cheering cut off instantly, leaving only silence. I collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath. My body ached, my mind spun. The entity's voice filled the corridor. You cannot escape. You cannot survive. You are mine. I closed my eyes, whispering the rules to myself like a prayer. Don't answer the voices. Don't open classroom 3B. Don't enter the gymnasium. Don't listen to the library. Don't turn around. Don't leave before dawn. But it was too late. I had broken 2 rules. The entity pressed closer, its form towering over me, its eyes burning brighter. You cannot escape. You cannot survive. You are mine. I screamed, stumbling backward, desperate to escape. The labyrinth twisted again, corridors spiraling into darkness. The entity followed, relentless, mocking, triumphant. You cannot escape. You cannot survive. You are mine. The labyrinth pulsed like a living organism, its walls breathing, its corridors twisting endlessly. My lungs burned, my legs trembled, but I kept moving. Dawn was coming. If I could last until the first light, maybe, just maybe, I could survive. The binder of rules was torn, its pages fluttering wildly as though mocking me. Red ink bled across the paper. You broke the rules. You cannot escape. But I clung to it anyway. It was the only anchor I had left. The voices surrounded me, louder than ever, overlapping in a cacophony of sound. You broke the rule. You let us in. You are ours. I pressed my hands over my ears, whispering the rules to myself like a prayer. Don't answer the voices. Don't open classroom 3B. Don't enter the gymnasium. Don't listen to the library. Don't turn around. Don't leave before dawn. I had broken 2, but maybe the others could still protect me. The corridors twisted again, leading me toward the stairwell. The door was ajar. Another test. Another rule. I slammed it shut, my hands trembling. The voices screamed in protest, the sound reverberating through the building. The entity's presence pressed closer, suffocating, relentless. Its voice filled the air, mocking, triumphant. You cannot escape. You cannot survive. You are mine. I stumbled forward, desperate to escape. My flashlight flickered, sputtered, then died. Darkness swallowed me. The footsteps returned, louder than ever, pounding behind me. I forced myself forward, refusing to turn. My heart pounded, sweat dripping down my forehead. The voices shifted, softer now, almost gentle. Why resist? You are tired. You are alone. Let us take you. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. No, I won't. The labyrinth twisted again, corridors spiraling into darkness. I stumbled, my breath ragged, my body weak. Then a light, faint, distant, but real. I ran toward it, desperate, my legs trembling. The voices screamed, the entity roared, the walls shook, but I kept running. The light grew brighter, piercing the darkness.
Dawn. I burst through the final corridor, collapsing onto the floor as the first rays of sunlight streamed through the windows. The labyrinth dissolved, the walls shifting back into familiar hallways. The school was a building again. The voices fell silent. The entity retreated. I lay there, gasping for breath, tears streaming down my face. I had survived, but survival came at a cost. The binder lay beside me, its pages torn, its words blurred. New rules had appeared in red ink. You broke the rules. You survived. But you will return. I closed my eyes, exhaustion overwhelming me. The custodian's words echoed in my mind. The rules aren't protection, they're boundaries. Break them, and you invite it in. I had broken them. I had invited it in. And though Dawn had saved me, I knew the entity wasn't gone. It was waiting. And tomorrow night, it would return. The first light of dawn spilled across the cracked windows, painting the hallways in pale gold. I collapsed against the wall, my chest heaving, my body trembling from exhaustion. I had survived. The labyrinth had dissolved, the voices had retreated, and the entity had vanished into the shadows. But survival felt hollow. The binder lay beside me, its pages torn, its words blurred. New sentences had appeared in red ink, bleeding across the paper like wounds. You survived, but survival has a price. I stared at the words, my stomach twisting. The custodian had warned me. The rules weren't protection, they were boundaries. Breaking them invited the entity in. But what he hadn't told me was that dawn itself carried a cost. The silence pressed in, heavier than before. The building was still, but not safe. I pushed myself to my feet, clutching the binder. My legs trembled, my breath ragged. I moved through the hallways, each step echoing too loudly. The sunlight streamed through the windows, but it felt wrong, too pale, too cold, as though it wasn't real. The voices were gone, but their absence was worse. Silence here was never safe. I reached the library doors, their glass panes gleaming in the morning light. The whispers had stopped, but the shelves seemed to watch me, their spines gleaming faintly. I turned away, refusing to enter. The gymnasium was silent too, its lights off, its doors closed. But I could still feel the echoes of the game, the hunger of the players. Classroom 3B stood chained again, the lock restored. But the scratches on the door remained, deep and jagged, proof of what had clawed at it. I stumbled into the security office, collapsing into the chair. The binder sat on the desk, open to the final page. New words had appeared. The dawn saves you, but it binds you. You will return. You cannot leave. My stomach twisted. Survival wasn't freedom. It was a sentence. The custodian entered, his face pale, his eyes haunted. He looked at me, then at the binder. You broke the rules, he said softly. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. I answered the voice. He sighed, his shoulders heavy. Then you know the price. I swallowed hard. What is it? He hesitated, then said, You survived, but now you belong to the school. Dawn doesn't free you, it binds you. You'll return tomorrow night, and the night after, and every night until the school decides you've paid enough. My chest tightened, my breath catching. Paid enough? He nodded grimly. The school feeds on broken rules. It feeds on fear, on survival. You gave it what it wanted, and now it won't let you go. I collapsed into the chair, my body trembling. Survival wasn't victory, it was captivity. The custodian placed a hand on my shoulder, his eyes filled with sorrow. I've been here for years. I broke a rule once. I survived, and I've been returning every night since. The dawn saves us, but it binds us. We are prisoners of the school. Tears streamed down my face. I had thought dawn was salvation, but it was a trap. The binder's words burned into my mind. You survived, but survival has a price. I closed my eyes, exhaustion overwhelming me. The voices were gone, the entity retreated, but I knew they would return. And tomorrow night, I would be here again. The story closes not with peace, but with inevitability. The narrator survives the night, yet dawn reveals the cruel truth. Survival is not freedom, but bondage. The school is no ordinary building. It is a living labyrinth, feeding on broken rules and binding those who resist. Every night is a test, every dawn a reminder that the entity is patient, eternal, and waiting. The custodian's truth confirms the cycle. Once you break a rule, you belong to the school. The narrator's fate is sealed, not by death, but by endless return. The rules are no longer warnings, they are chains. Thus, the conclusion leaves the audience with a chilling realization. The true horror is not in dying, but in surviving.